Good morning, everybody. God willing, we're beginning this week to learn about the tragic and disappointing and shameful episode in Judaism, which tells us a lot about what Judaism is also, about the what's called the scouts, Amaraglim, the spies. What happened? The Jewish people got out of Egypt and they went to Mount Sinai. They received the Torah. And about 1 year after they received the Torah, so God said, that's it, go and enter the land of Israel. And the Jewish people said, well, that's a good idea. But let's send in scouts, Meraglim, scouts to scout out the land of Israel. And they'll come back and tell us about how wonderful it is, and etc. Just so we have a little idea what's going on. So Moses said, what do you say, God? God said, Shlach lecha, if you want to do it, it's up to you. So Moses sent 12 scouts, heads of each tribe, high, holy people from each one of the 12 tribes. And they came back, and 2 of them said, let's go in. And 10 of them said, let's not go in. Scary. We were there. The people are giants. We won't make it. We won't survive. And the Jewish people said, well, 10-2, we have to go after the majority. We don't want to go in. So Moses said, what are you talking about, the majority? God said we should go in, even if everybody says not. We should go in. But what do you care whatever people say, what you think? What people think? We have to do what God wants. And all the people said, what did he say? What did Moses say? Who is this Moses anyway? Why should we, you go. Moses, you want to go, you go. Anyway, it ended up that God said to Moses, listen, let me just wipe them all out. And Moses said no. So he said, okay, you know what? So they'll wander around in the desert. They'll get their wish. They'll wander around for 40 years. 40 years. Until they all die. Everybody from above the age of 20 will die. As soon as they got to the age of 60, they died. And therefore, all these people who said they didn't want to go into the land of Israel said they didn't go. Land of Israel. Okay, why did they refuse? What was the point? How could they saw God's miracles, they saw God's power. How was it that they refused? And why did God get so mad? So they didn't want to go in, so what? So they'll stay in the desert, so what? God got really angry at them. So there's the first discourse here. Explain. This is Rebbe has a lot of commentary here. Essentially, the reason God did want them to go into the land of Israel so desperately, because only in the land of Israel can you really do the commandments. And even those commandments which you can do outside of Israel, it's not the same power as those that are done in the land of Israel. Right? That's according to all opinions. There's some opinions that say that all the commandments that are done outside of Israel are not from the Torah. That opinion is not accepted, but it's a very, very, how do you say, a very respected opinion. Respected opinion. Okay, but that opinion is not so. But still, nevertheless, the fact of the matter is the land of Israel, the main thing in the land of Israel is the commandments. By the way, that's why the Moshiach is going to, first of all, build the Holy Temple. And then he's going to gather all the Jews, because he's going to convince all the Jews of the importance of doing commandments. And you can only do the commandments in the land of Israel. That's why Moshiach is going to draw the Jews to Israel, which that's really important right now, because there's all these people in the world saying the land of Israel is not Israel, it's Palestine, it belongs to the non-Jews, which is, ridiculous. But amazingly, really just astoundingly, the Israeli government and the Israeli, how do you say, this must be a good word, explainers, the Hasbara, what do they call them? The apologists, the explainers. Anyway, the Israel does not use this as an argument for, they sit, paralyzed, silent, right? The non-Jews say it belongs to us. And they say, well, let's come on, let's be nice guys. The fact of the matter is that's really the best argument, if you want to call it. You can say other arguments that we just took it over, and any country that takes a country over, that country belongs to the conqueror. Okay, but let's not talk about that. Here we're talking about the real, true reason. So it's the same reason now as the spies had. The spies said, we don't want to go into the land of Israel. The commandments are not so important to us. When we're in the desert, we can sit and learn Torah. And Torah is much more important. Torah is more spiritual, etc. So that's why all the spies decided they didn't want to go into the land of Israel. In addition to the reason that they were afraid and things like that, but they had a really good excuse and reason to be afraid. Namely, they're in the desert. God is doing all these miracles in the desert. He's giving them bread from heaven, water from a rock, protecting them with clouds. God took us out into the desert. Let's stay in the desert. God wants us to go into the land of Israel. So he'll force us to go in the land of Israel. He'll take the cloud. They were surrounded by these clouds. So the clouds will go into Israel, right? We'll just go wherever the clouds go. What do you... right? But no, they refused. They refused. The Jews refused to go in the land of Israel. And therefore God got really angry. And he said, okay, this generation won't go in. 40 years to wander in the desert. They were supposed to just have been in the desert for like a year or so, right? Around Mount Sinai. And then they would have gone immediately into the land of Israel, but they refused. So they said, okay, 1 year you'll be in the desert, you'll get your wish. You won't go into the land of Israel. The next generation will go into the land of Israel. Okay. This week's Torah portion also ends with a commandment of tzitzit. Tzitzit. What is tzitzit? If you have a four-cornered garment, see like here, there's corners. So you're supposed to put on each corner tzitzit. Tzitzit. And it used to be in the time of the temple that there was also the color blue over here. Blue. And there are some people say there's the Rebbe of Rudzin, and he brings a lot of really very strong proofs that you can, that we have blue now also. It comes from a special type of a snail or whatever it is that does that. And he says he found the snail, and it's the blue, and he's got really very strong proofs. But the Arizal and a lot of the Hasidim today, a lot of people, they say that until, while we're in exile, since the temple was destroyed, there won't be blue. No matter what we find, it won't be blue. Anyway, those people who say they did find the blue, that's okay. Doesn't disqualify anything. And those people that don't have the blue, it also doesn't disqualify anything. Okay, but so we don't have the blue. Okay, but nevertheless, there is this commandment of tzitzit. So in general, we have to understand something, and that is, what is this idea of commandments? Only Judaism has commandments. It's the only religion that has commandments. The only religion. All the other, we talked about this many, many times before. The other religions, there's thousands of religions in the world. Thousands, who knows, maybe tens of thousands, 20,000. I heard someone told me that there's denominations of religions, right? Christianity has like 20,000 denominations of Christianity, right? In India, there's all these different branches of Hinduism and Jainism, and there's all the religions you haven't even heard about before. All sorts of worships and weird things going on. Anyway, whatever they are, even those religions that claim to replace Judaism, they don't have commandments. They have rituals, they have customs, they have their heritage, they have holidays, they have whatever the celebrations, whatever, but they don't have commandments. They don't have commandments. And the reason for that is very simple. They don't have commandments. So they don't have commandments because all the other religions do not stress this world. They don't say that this world is the goal. They say the goal is going to heaven. So the whole thing of commandments is using this physical world to do what God wants. In other words, making this world holy. That's the idea of the commandments. Using something physical and making this world holy. There we go. Okay, so let's learn about that today. There's a lot of wonderful things we can learn about, but I just chose this one to learn about, and let's see if we can do it. Tzitzit. Okay, so there's the commandment. Here we have the commandment. It's right at the end of this week's Torah portion. And basically, this Torah portion is talking about the commandments, right? God wants the Jews to go into the land of Israel so they can really, truly do the commandments. The commandments are holy. The land of Israel is holy. The Jewish people are holy. the Torah is holy, but it only really all comes together when they're in the land of Israel, doing the physical land of Israel, doing the physical commandments. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why it's foolish and insane to say that anyone except for the Jews can be here, because only the Jews are called holy. And the land of Israel is called holy, and the commandments are called holy. And only the Jews are commanded to do commandments. Okay, so we're going to talk about what this is now. So let's go. The point is, what is a Jew? What's a Jew? Right, there's some people that write me. I get some people write me. It's wrong. They should make it easier to be a Jew. Especially the Jews are suffering and the Jews are this and they're this. We should make it easier to be a Jew. So I write back to them. It's like, no, they say it should be easier to be a doctor. You're going to go to a doctor that he got out the easy way. Right? Criminals, they want to be normal citizens. So let them go. They want to be normal citizens. The person has to have certain qualifications. Same thing, a Jew, you have to have a certain qualifications. But here it's talking different. Jews are holy. In order to be holy, it has to be according to the Torah. Either your mother is Jewish or you converted according to the Shulchan Aruch, according to the law. So everything has to be according to the law, because the main thing in Judaism is this physical world. You can't mess around with it. It has to be exactly. When you put on tefillin, it can't just be 2 boxes. It has to be boxes with exactly the right parchments in it. They have to be written correctly. And even if they are written correctly, it has to be that all the letters are still whole. They haven't been cracked or anything like that. Because if they are, then the whole tefillin is, why? What's the big deal? You bought a pair of tefillin for $2,000, $1,000, $500, right? You're putting boxes on your head. What difference does it make what's inside of it, right? But it does. Everything has to be very exact. That's what the commandments are, because God wants to be revealed in this exact, beautiful world, right? Your body is important, where every corpuscle is and where every vein is and where every nerve is. Yes, important, right? It has to be very exact. You can't say, just throw a few nerves in there and, so what if there's no nerves in the bottom part of it? But we'll put a couple more nerves in the top part of your body, right? You can't do that. Everything has to be exact. The same thing is with the Torah and the commandments. Okay, here we have an interesting thing. The relationship between the Jews and God. Ready? Here we go. Tzitzit. Says when you have a 4-cornered garment, you have to put on those 4-cornered garment strings on the corner, and the strings will be called tzitzit. Ureitem oto, and you will see it. That's talking about this blue strand, which we don't have today. So we'll see it and remember the blue strand. Uzachartem, and you will remember God. Laman tizkuru, in order that you will remember. Vasitam, and you will do all the commandments. And then in the end it says, I am God that took you out of Egypt. I am God. It says it twice. I am God that took you out of Egypt. I am God. That's what it says in the Torah. Now remember that the Torah was written by God. The Torah was written by God himself. And there were 3 million witnesses to this. So it wasn't that just Moses came down from the mountain and he said, you'll never believe what I just heard, guys. I mean, you'll never believe it, right? What did you say? So Moses gives a wink, to all of his cronies that are all around there, that he paid them all off. And he said that the Lord spoke to me and he told me these words. And everybody says, oh, yes, right? And he's got all these guards standing over there with knives and swords. And everybody says, oh, yes, yes. And it was passed on. That's not what it was. God spoke to all the Jews. All the Jews heard it. And they told their children that they heard it. And the children told their children that they heard it, that they were at Mount Sinai and they heard it. Since the Torah was given on Mount Sinai, since then, Jews have been reading it in public 3,336 some years, nonstop. Same Torah, never changed. As soon as there's the slightest change, everybody yells and screams, hey, you made a mistake. Okay, so here's God writing in the Torah like this. That you must do commandments. And the commandments are, one of them are the commandments, 248 positive commandments. A lot of the commandments depend on the Holy Temple. A lot of the commandments can only be done in Israel, a lot of the agricultural commandments. But here's one commandment that can be done anywhere. Buy yourself a 4-cornered garment and put on this 4-cornered garment tzitzit, strings, and you should see them, and you'll remember that you remember and do all the commandments. Hine, Knesset Yisrael, the Jewish people, Nikrim, are called Kala. They are called God's bride. Huh? The Jewish people are called the bride of God. The Jewish people are called the sons of God. The Jewish people are called the servants of God. The Jewish people are called the soldiers of God. And when we got out of Egypt, we were called the soldiers of God. And the Jewish people, when before they got out of Egypt, God told Moses, go into Paro and say, my son, my chosen one, Israel, my son, my special one. And when they received the Torah, they became servants of God. Ivdu et Hashem al servants. But in the Song of Songs, the book of Songs of King Solomon, the Jewish people are called God's bride. And God is called the groom. Like it says, Bayom Chatanuto, it says that in Song of Songs, that God rejoiced, whatever, on the day of his wedding. What was the day of his wedding? Zeh Matan Torah. This is the day of the giving of the Torah. The Kativ, and it is written in the prophet. Which prophet is it? I think it's Isaiah. Bayomahu tikra ishi. Ishi. You will be called I will be called your husband, Ishi. Jewish people call God my husband. The Inyan is like this. Kihine kasiv. It is written, Lazot yikra isha ki meish lukachazot. When God created man, what is it, an hour or something after he created man? So he created woman, took woman from man. He says, we're going to call her Isha. Why? Because she was taken from Ish, from man. Knesset Yisrael, the Jewish people, they are called Isha. They are called the wife. Why are they called the wife of God? Because Ish, hey. They are called the fire of the letter Hey. And God is called Ish because that's the fire of the letter Yud. See the letter Yud is in there? Yud. Okay, the women, Jewish people are called God's bride. They are called feminine, woman. That's fire of the letter Hey. What's the letter Hey? Now, God has four letters in his name. God has a lot of different names according to different aspects of God. But the main aspect of God is that God is the creator of all being, all the spiritual and everything like that. And there's the four letters. That's a four-letter name. And the last letter is the letter Hey. And this letter Hey, it also corresponds to what God's creative power or God's mouth. It says Behei Bara'am. It says God created the world with the letter Hey. This, by the way, corresponds to the word Avraham. Avraham with a Hey. So it says Behei Bara'am. God created the world with the letter Hey. What do you mean the letter Hey? Because the mouth speaking, in order to speak, you have to have five, what is it called? Organs of speech. What are the five organs of speech? There's some letters that you can't pronounce without your tongue. Right? There's some you can without a tongue, but there's some letters you can't pronounce without lips. P is with the tongue. Pe is with the pe. There's some letters that you can't pronounce without your throat. Some you can't pronounce without the palate. Some you can't pronounce without teeth. Right, without teeth. So those are the five organs of speech. The teeth, the lips, the palate, the throat, and the tongue. And in the book, Sefer Yetzirah, the book of formation, which it says that the rabbis of the Talmud, they used it, some of them knew how to do it. They used it to create a person. It says that Rabbah created a person. And later on, the Maharal of Prague, which was about, I don't know, 400 years ago, something like that, 3 or 4 years ago. The Maharal of Prague, he also created a person from it. And that's the letter Hey. And so it explains that each one of these five organs, want to call it, of speech, there are certain letters of the Hebrew alphabet that correspond to it. Achaz from the throat, and Pomf, it comes from the lips, and etc. So the five, Ubabruach Piv called Sava'am, but God creates everything from his speech, but also from the breath. Without breath, you can't speak. This is the source of the 10 utterances from which the world was created. Like it says in Pirkei Avot, that God could have created the world with one utterance. Remember, we learned in Pirkei Avot, we learned in Devar Malchut, we learned about that. So God actually created the world with 10 utterances, and those 10 utterances make use of the 5 organs of God's speech. And those 5 organs of God's speech, that's the source of the letters. So the letters of God, that's the source of all creation, the spiritual worlds, they come from the letters. But all of them basically come from this letter Hey, which the letter Hey, that's like the wind that is behind all these 5 aspects of speech. Okay, so we're sort of getting a little bit sort of anthropomorphic. You know what anthropomorphic means? Anthropomorphic means that we're making God into like a person. But you can't do that because God does not have an image and God has no image. But on the other hand, God does have an image, because it says that Moses spoke to God and he convinced God to do things, right? God wanted to wipe out the Jewish people and Moses said, don't. And God said, okay, I won't. In this week's Torah portion, we see. So God does have an image. He doesn't have an image. Here, God created the world. He created the world very exactly. Here we're saying God has a mouth. And so this is a big mystery. This is the whole mystery of the Torah. This is the whole mystery of the Torah, that God is more infinite than we thought. We thought that God's infinite means that he's got nothing to do with the world. Right? The world is just a low, temporal, ethereal reality. And God, he's the real thing. But the fact of the matter is that's only half true. God is certainly the real thing, and this world is certainly ethereal and not really real. But we're going to see that the Jewish people are God's bride. And the Jewish people, by doing the commandments, they make this world as real as God is. In fact, they show why God really creates the world. What does he have to create the world for? Just let him be one, and that's it. He's creating the world in some way, some weird way. God needs to create the world. It's a necessary part of reality that there should be a world. The world is not just an arbitrary, God just had something in his mouth and just spit it out, and that's how the world was created. So we'll see that every detail of the world is also as infinite as God is. That's ideally. That's what the Moshiach is going to reveal. The mysteries of every instant and every detail of this world. But meanwhile, we're living in a world that all we can see is that the world was created from the 5 letters, from the 5 aspects of God's speech. It was very, very concealed. God is very concealed from his word, from his world. Just like when you speak, you say a word, right? You can hear recordings of people that spoke 100 years ago, maybe even more nowadays. People that spoke even more than 100 years ago. Let's see, I think the first gramophone, it was about 100 years ago, I think it was recorded. You can hear these people speaking. I think it was like right after Abraham Lincoln or something like that, which Abraham Lincoln was 1860 something. So it was like 150 years ago, less than 150 years ago. So nevertheless, a person can speak, and you can record his voice, and you can think that that's the person, right? Because speech is separate from a person. The same thing, God created the world so that the world would seem to be separate from God. That's what God wanted. Okay, the union is, but nevertheless, it's the world, and it's God's world. God's created. This idea of the letter Hey, hulafi shehu, this is because it is an asa kalila, it is a very light letter. Kalila, it is a very light letter. Ha. The lace by mashasha, and it has no real substance to it. Shu ha'ara ba'alma. The letter Hey is just like, it's a nothing. The letter Lamed, it sounds something, but the letter Hey is just, this is what's called Shehu ha'ara ba'alma. This is just like a sort of a wisp of godliness. Hayotze mehevel alev, that comes from the mouth, from the heart to the mouth. The old makor adiba, to the source of speech. Sha'orahu einu nogas ba'atzmo, so it doesn't relate to a person's essence of the soul. Rak koach hispashtus is just the ability for the soul to spread out from itself and to go out. So it's like if you ask a person, you want to go home or not, and the person goes, what does that mean? Right? If he goes, see, maybe it means no, low. Maybe it means low. Maybe it does something. It's a little sound that indicates something, but the letter doesn't mean anything. It's just the letter Hey. Is the least meaningful of all the letters, just A, but it shows that it's coming out of the soul, right? Maybe grandpa can't say anything, but at least it's a sign that he's alive, right? This is not coming from the essence of the soul. The essence of the soul comes when you say something to someone, right? I love you, I care about you, don't do that. You say something that's coming from your soul. Doesn't mean anything, but at least it's the potential to say things. All the letters come from this letter Hey. Also, God's life force. God has also the power of speech, the power for God to create the worlds from nothing to something, that the godliness should be what's called filling the worlds and surrounding the worlds. It's just like the letter Hey. All the spiritual worlds, and even the source of all these spiritual worlds, as real as they seem and as amazing as they seem, and as this is all the goal of all the other religions in the world, to just get into heaven, because there you get closer to God. Says the whole thing it's true, it's closer to God. Yes, it is, definitely. But it's almost like, if you go to Shakespeare and you say, would you let's hear a speech, an original speech from Shakespeare, and he goes, says, what's that? He says, that's the source of all my speech. The source of my speech, right? When I say, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? That's words that come up, but this is the source of the words, right? Want to hear it again? That's pretty disappointing, right? It's pretty disappointing. It says, because that's the source, really the source of all of the worlds that God creates, right? Just like the same thing in Shakespeare, the source of all of his wisdom and his great artistic ability and his literary talents and things like that, it comes from this letter Hey. So it's just like a ray from what the essence of, let's take our example, Shakespeare. Shakespeare's a human being, right? A human being is infinitely greater, what a human being is, than anything that he can make. Even though the world seems to say not today, right? It's all, you are what you succeed at doing. But the fact is, a human being is a precious, amazing miracle gift. Even a person that's not talented at all, even a person that's mentally, whatever it is, incapable, a human being, right? And so a human being is infinitely more. So here you got Shakespeare, all of his wisdom and all this great, talents, and he was very talented, incredibly. But still, it all comes from just a little Hey of his essence, what a human being really is. This is the same thing as all the worlds. All the worlds are just like from God, even the spiritual worlds. And this ray is based on the Jewish people. The Jewish people, this is the source of the souls, liot lahem eish vitlavut litlahev. That's because therefore the Jewish people are called Isha, fire of Hay. The reason that God is creating the world and he put the Jews in it, so that the Jews should show everyone in the world that the world has a source. The world as it is without the source is infinitely far from God. But if you can reveal the source, and the Jewish people have inside of them this feeling there is a source. So that's why it's the fire of Hay. The Jewish people, they're fired up and they are inspired, Barish Fe'esh, with a flaming fire, Chuka, Libatel, to be included in this infinite light of God, which is called Isha. Therefore, the Jewish people are called woman, Eish Hay, the fire of Hay. So the Jewish people feel in their soul, not just philosophically, maybe there could be a God, maybe not. Every Jew, without exception, that's what makes him a Jew, him, her, a Jew, has this feeling in their heart that the world is real, but it's coming from an infinitely greater reality. And that reality is coming from even a greater reality. And the whole business just comes from the letter Hey of God's name. God's name. And that can be revealed in the world. Meanwhile, we're striving to get to the source. Right? Every Jew knows somewhere down deep in his soul, and it could be totally confused, and it could be the person doesn't even know that he's a Jew. But something in there doesn't allow him to rest. And that's what's called the fire of Hay. The Jewish people, therefore, they're called the wife of God. Eish Hay, the fire of the letter Hay. They're inflamed because they feel that the world is just created from the letter Hay of God's name. Like it says, like it says, to your wife, to your husband will be your desire. That's what God said to Chava, Eve, when he created her. But even it says, Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. It says that the light, the lamp of God is the soul of man. Shanashama, that the soul is also called a ner, it's called a lamp, like a lamp that has fire in it. Just like a lamp that has fire from below, and the fire goes from below to above. And that's the nature of fire, to go from below to above. A fire goes up on its own. If the Jewish people are in the world, because the Jewish people have not just a philosophical awareness or a question in their mind, maybe there could be God. Every Jew feels it. In some ways, the simple Jews feel it even more, because it's not confused by intellect. That there is a creator, and the creator is creating the world for a reason. And they want to become closer to this creator. The heart is burning. It's like a flame that goes up on its own. Just like that's what it was before it came into this world, to be in a physical body. And even after the soul is in the body, anyone who wants to get closer to Hashem, it's in his power to arouse this hidden love which is there. Okay. What's this got to do with Tzitzis, and what's this got to do with, we'll see. Okay, so understand that because this life of God was drawn into the creations from, it says, nothing to something, that God is making these worlds appear to be something, but really the worlds are absolutely nothing. And God brings them out from nothing to be something all the time. That their Jewish people are called a nation. The nation comes from the word omomos, means to be dim. We seem to be totally separate from God. How can the Jewish people have the power to be bechinas bitol v'iskalus bechinas ein sof? Simply speaking, what the Rebbe is asking a simple question. The Rebbe is the only one that feels this. What's he talking about? Every Jew has a flaming fire, wants to get closer to the Creator, wants to bring the Creator into the creation. Every Jew, really? Where do you see this? Who says this? Only the Rebbe is saying this. The Rebbe is saying, no, I'm saying it to you. Maybe you don't know it, but you have the same desire to come close to God as I do. You're a Jew. Says, okay, good. I have the desire. Okay, so leave me alone. But I have the desire. You want to say it? Good. It makes you feel happy. I have the desire. And not only that, even if I do have this desire to come close to God, so how am I going to reveal this desire you're talking about? I mean, I never felt it. I don't know anybody else who felt it. I don't know what you're talking about. So where are you going to get this hine alzeh? It says, that's what it says, that the first woman, Chava, Eve, she was taken from man. She was taken from man. Eish is the fire of Yud. The Yud is bechinas chachmei Eloah, that the Yud is the inner point, the letter Yud is a little point. The Kacha Chachma, also this power of Chachma. Now, Chachma is another name for the essence of the soul. It's the highest of the 10 Sfirot. And this power of Chachma is what's above understanding. This is like pure life. This is called like Barak HaMavrik. It's like a flash of lightning. A moach and a brain, Kodem Shabol Yedei Bina, before it comes to be understood. So Hashem arranges it that every Jew gets a little sort of a shot once in a while. Whoa, that's what it means. I'm a Jew. That's what it means. I'm a Jew. He gets a shot. The world is very confusing. The world is very good. But nevertheless, every Jew, somehow or other, and until he gets it, it says that there's reincarnations. People come from one incarnation to another until he finally gets the point. And what does it mean I'm a Jew? There was the Professor Brownover. He should have a big professor, and he was in what is it? Magnetohydrodynamics. Something. He had a big center in Beersheba. Yeah, he was a professor anyway. And now he was paralyzed anyway. So, but he said, if I get the story right, I hope, but that one of the things that made him become Jewish is somebody yelled at him, "You dirty Jew." And there's other stories of people that I know the same thing. They didn't even know they were Jewish. You dirty Jew. Kids come home from school. So the kids called me a dirty Jew, right? Kids called me a dirty Jew. What does it mean in Russia and other places? Dirty Jew. His parents say, "Oh, it doesn't mean anything," but they keep calling me that. Okay, I want you to know that your mother is Jewish, and something happens all of a sudden. So what's it? So why do they hate me? What's the point? Now I think it's happening in the whole world. Right? All of a sudden, people hate the Jews, and the Jews they don't know what happened to them. It's like a lightning in what they call it in a beautiful cloudless summer day, and all of a sudden there's lightning shoots out from where did that come from? Right? Where did it come from? Yeah, these Jews are on college campuses. They're getting along with everybody. They're against Israel. They're against everybody. Someone says, "You're a dirty Jew." What? Hey, I'm with you. Yeah, sure, you're a dirty Jew. Kill the Jews. What happened? Says because that's called the maverick. That's the chachma. That's the inner flash. All of a sudden, something flashes inside of you. Wow, that's who I am. I'm a Jew. What does it mean? What does it mean? Why is it so important? People hate me. Before it comes to be revealed, vasaga bizgalus amoach. That this is the level of what's called the chachma, which is the point, a little point of reality of consciousness of what reality really is, which is revealed in the brain, that Bina, understanding, this is widening out. Widening out, the harchavas amoach, you take an idea and you develop it. That's the idea of Chachma and Bina. Let's take a second just to understand. Chachma and Bina. Bina is like the letter Hey. Chachma is the letter Yud. It's almost like the seed of the father and the womb of the mother. The seed is just a little seed, or you put a seed in the ground. The ground or the womb of the mother, that causes the thing to develop. It develops up. The same thing is in your mind. Chachma is an idea. Bina is how that idea expands. There's a couple of examples. Communism, Freud. Right? The communists, they had an idea. This guy gets an idea. I'm going to do away with money. Then the world is going to be perfect. Right? Freud has this idea. All human problems come from the inability to resolve the Oedipus complex. People love their mother, their father, whatever it is. The idea. Okay, the idea is false. It doesn't make any difference though. The idea is false, but it's an idea. It's an idea. All of a sudden, this idea. That's the chachma. He gets an idea. That's the idea. I get rid of all the money. There won't be any more problems. That's it. That's a little idea. Then the idea develops. It develops more and more and more. Like, how are we going to do this? There has to be a revolution. There has to be this or this. It develops into more and more ideas and more. There's whole universities, right? Karl Marx universities with all these ideas and sub-ideas and explanations of communism, right? Doesn't make any difference how wrong and improper the idea is, but it still is an idea, and that idea is like starts the flame, right? The same thing with Freud, a totally wrong idea, but it was an idea, and it made a little bit of sense, and nobody else had anything to go against it. So, to develop it out, how there has to be the psychoanalysis and the Oedipus complex, all this other stuff. Ideas come out. That's Bina. Bina is making it wide. Those are false ideas. And let's take about a true idea. I am a Jew. An idea. Who? What does that mean? Right? People call me a dirty Jew. What's dirty about me? What did I do? What did I do wrong? Right? He gets a flash. You are a Jew. He goes and asks the Reform rabbi. The Reform rabbi has absolutely no idea what you're talking about. Doesn't know why people are angry at me. Maybe because you're doing the commandments. Stop doing the commandments. Doesn't know why. Finally, he gets to an Orthodox, normal rabbi, and he says, "You're a Jew. People hate you because we're God's chosen people, and they can't stand it. They can't stand it. God's chosen. God. Who says there's God? Chosen for what? That's what we have Torah for. We have commandments. We want to make the world a good place, and these people don't want the world to be a good place. They want it to be a bad place. They hate you because they're evil. They want to be destructive." Is that true? What does it mean? So the idea gets wider and wider, but especially inside of us. If I'm really a Jew and I'm God's people, what is God? God creates the world. So what does it mean that they're bad and I'm good? What does good mean? What does it mean that I'm good? How do I make good? All of a sudden it starts to open up that what? That God really is good and that God really wants us to transform the world to a good place. That's Bina. Bina means understanding. Bina, this is the world, what's called the world of pleasure for the souls. And that the souls get pleasure from truth, that they get pleasure from their ideas in the Orient Sof and the infinite light of God, Vasaga Zu. And this understanding is called in the name of Yesh. When you begin to understand what God is, then it means that you've taken God and you've put him into a definition. That's called a Yesh. And God really cannot be defined. But God wants you to try to define him. That's what the Torah, even though the Torah is a bunch of words, and really they're definitions of what you should do and what you do, but you always have to remember that the Torah comes from God and that we don't understand what God is. So there's these two opposites, Yesh and Ayin, all the time. The Chachma is Ayin, that's pure life, undifferentiated, and Yesh is what this inspires. That's what it means. God says, Anchil or Yesh. I am going to give those who I love, I'm going to give this letter Yesh. That's called Gan Eden. That's called heaven. Heaven, all the spiritual pleasures come from this Bina, the understanding and the development of this point of Chachma, of life. But Chachma me'ayin timsa, but Chachma is this pure godliness. Chachma, this is what's called Eden. The revelation of this and the pleasures of the soul, that's in the Garden of Eden. That's where Adam was. The Garden of Eden. But the pleasure itself, the source of it, that's called Eden. Right? And the Torah says that a river came out from Eden and it watered the garden. So there's the garden and it gets water from Eden. Oh, this is levels of pleasure. Eden is the source of all pleasure. And not pleasure like you get from winning of the lottery or something like that. That's just a little, that's like worms eating, you get pleasure from eating garbage or from eating, the feces of a cat or something like that. That's all the pleasures we can get into this world are just like, playing in the toilet. They're pleasures, but they're very low pleasures. The pleasures in heaven, the pleasures in heaven, it's worth going through the world for all the pleasures in heaven. And that's nothing compared to the source of all pleasure. And we're going to see the source of all pleasure can only be gotten in this world. We're going to see it by doing the commandments. Kamosha ein tainu, just like there's no revealed pleasure in this level of chachma, that it's still just a little flash in the mind, that then there's revealed the pleasure, which is not the case. In chachma, the pleasure is in its source. Let's just take our example again. Somebody says, you're a dirty Jew. You get pleasure from that? No pleasure whatsoever. But all of a sudden you start to realize, what is this thing of a Jew? I'm a Jew. What does it mean? That little point is a point of your true identity, and it's totally not pleasurable. What do I get pleasure from? I don't understand. Nobody understands it. But that is really the source of all reality. That's this level of chachma, comes from nowhere. The hu bechin is bittul. This is total surrender to God, mamish, to Ein Sof. This is from this high level. That's the reason why God made the world. Liod nimshach bechin is bittul, that we can be surrendered to God, into the source of the soul, the Jewish souls. It says mishami pared b'chalak lasamach riba. From there, from this yud, it's drawn down into the world. That's hey, aish, hey, the letter hey, to create the world. And from then it's drawn down to be the 600,000 root souls of the Jewish people, that they are the sources of the souls. And there's many branches and et cetera, and et cetera, and et cetera. And all of them they have this ability to be surrendered to God. And that they should be in harmony with God. Bittul hayesh, that they realize that they're really coming from God and that they're really nothing. That's what it means, the light of God. The Jewish people want to be included in their source. Every Jew. Okay, how can this revelation be in this physical world? This is like it's going to be, the Rebbe is going to say, this is by means of the commandments. Excuse me. This is like taking the drop of semen from the father and making it from a human being. How can you do that? It says this, it has to be first of all drawn this wisdom of God in order to make the Jewish people in the world with all their diversity. It has to come in through this bina. Bina, that's the Jewish people. That's like the mother. That's like the mother. This is and it finally manifests itself in the 248 commandments, positive commandments. The 248 positive commandments, they are physical things, and they are vessels for God, made by God, and godliness can be put into them. And that's the way that we're going to reveal godliness in this world, is through the commandments. And that's the whole idea of the land of Israel. The land of Israel is the place where the Creator can be revealed. And eventually, the Creator that's creating the Jewish people and that's creating Israel is creating everybody. There's only one Creator, and He's creating everything. So from the land of Israel is going to come the awareness that we're being created, and that everyone in the world is going to be aware of the fact that who is creating us? The Creator of the heavens and the earth. The heavens are like nothing. We are created directly from the Creator of the universe. And this is all revealed when the Jews do the commandments. And that's one of the reasons why these other religions that claim to replace Judaism, why they are so destructive and evil, because they're trying to do away with the commandments. And the commandments are the only way that can reveal from this Yud, the Chachma of God, which is the Ish, into Bina, the Isha, that's us, into the world, as we're going to talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. And now let us do the Dvar Malchut.